Somebody give me the ability to share. Thank you, Sarah.
Ta-da!
You look very dapper today.
Yeah, I've got the photo event in town, so people are starting to come in. So I got a few people at the house. Then I got dinners and lunches, all the conference stuff that we have to do on here. So Lisa dressed me up. Actually, she said, "Oh, you can't wear that because we have to go to stuff afterwards." So she made me change, so I look more dapper.
Thank you, Lisa.
Always.
Hey guys, we are live. We have a few guests that are here with us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Beth. So let me share first a little bit. Is that I was on a call with Spring a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and we really wanted to define these calls and what they should do and what they should be. And we decided that it should be very tactical, right? So an advantage, if you guys know me, right, I coach agents, teams, brokerages all over North America. So I can easily see kind of some of the challenges that we're having in the industry from these, 10 or 15 teams and agents I'm talking to every day. So in doing that, we said, who can we have on the call that could make a very tactical call, value to the audience, so they can leave the call and make more money, which would be great. So ironically, Beth, I don't know if I shared this with you, but we both said, Beth, right? But at the same time, we're like, we need some Beth here. Because if you don't know, Beth is amazing. I had the privilege of actually working with Beth one-on-one a bunch in understanding her business, her model, and how she dominates the Buffalo market. We brought in Ethan to do some recruiting, and I spoke with him the following week, and I'm like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Good, but it's interesting. Everyone I call, they already know Beth. Like everyone knows her. She's like the mayor of her town and has dominated for years on there." But what I love most about Beth is we share a couple of philosophies. That one is that your business isn't your life or necessarily all of your identity, that you can still live a life, spend time with your family and your children, right? And still make a lot of money, which is something I promote from day one, if you know my backstory with my son. So, like, love Beth for that. But then Beth also focuses on what I focus on is how to make us more money so we can become more profitable. So what I learned from my 23 years of real estate now, and the most important number in real estate for all of us is the commission percentage retained. Because math, when you're talking about multiplication, becomes exponential. So a few tenths of a point more, say on a listing commission, we earn times a lot of sales, times millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars in volume equals a lot more GCI for you. Or if you have a team, right, the team and the agents there. So I asked Beth if she could bring out her magic and all her skills and all her techniques to teach us today what she has done very successfully in earning a higher commission rate than almost everyone else in her market. So we all can learn to apply that. And if we all can get a couple tenths more, we'll all make a lot more money. And this call will be worth your time on there. And I'm sure she'll deliver. So make sure you have a pen and paper because she tends to give you a lot of notes and tactics you're going to want to write down. And with that, the star of the show who's going to teach us something to make us more money, Beth Matthews. Take it away.
Yeah, guys, I'm all about making more money. And it's interesting. I've been in the real estate space, a combined between a little hiatus when I first started and now almost 20 years. And what I recognized is it is a form of selling, like professional selling, to be able to articulate value. And that sounds pretty obvious, but I can go back to when I was in my early 20s and I was selling cell phones. And I quickly became the top producer's nemesis, jokingly, because I was hitting the leaderboards more than she was, and I was making more commission. And yet she couldn't understand why. And it was a simple philosophy of mine that I just spent more time with each person that came in to buy a cell phone. I understood what their needs were, and I upsold them on anything that I thought was truly of value to them. So while she was actually hitting a lot more activations, I was bringing the company in a lot more money and being rewarded for it. So it's the same concept that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to share my screen. I do think it's helpful to have a visual, and I'll probably toggle back and forth a little bit so you guys can take some notes. But to start, this really comes down to, let me enter full screen. There we go. I really don't have to have a lot of conversation around defending my professional fee, which is what I refer to it as rather than a commission, because I spend a fair amount of time delivering value. Um, Generally, the question that I get towards the end of my conversation with a prospective seller is, well, I don't know that I can afford you, which tells me that I've done my job. So I'm going to walk you through my exact process of how I deliver value so clearly that I rarely get any pushback on what my professional fee is. And if I do, I will show you exactly how I overcome that to protect my fee and minimize any quote unquote risk to the client. So diving in today, get my screen wrong. If you've heard me speak before, you know, I say it is not what you know, which is the same concept. It's not that you get paid by saying you're worth more. It's not what you tell people. It's what you help them understand for themselves. So it's the whole concept of I don't tell anybody anything that I can show them. So this whole session is going to be about articulating value, demonstrating value, and really making sure that your prospective clients understand the value that you bring to the table so that you can protect and or increase your professional fee.
And let me interrupt there, Beth.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Because I'll interject, guys, when I hear Beth say something that I think I could just add a little bit to. So what Beth has mentioned there, which I study a lot of psychology, Beth, to like, why people do what they do and why would they maybe say yes or no to work with you. So a high percentage of your sellers learn and comprehend much better visually than auditorily. So if you're just telling them what you want to tell them and not showing them and demonstrating, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, I will tell you. So yeah, anything you want your consumer to really understand, there's got to be some sort of visual representation while you're telling them that they'll see and then understand much more easily and be able to get the results you want on there. So whatever Beth is telling you, find a way to make that visual when you're presenting it and you'll have a much better result. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah. And to that point, I don't have it as part of this presentation, but if you don't have a visual listing presentation, you need to get one immediately.
Right.
Um, the number of times that I've gone on into a competitive situation and just the fact that I showed up with a visual presentation and I follow a structure, everyone's like, oh my gosh, nobody else has done this. So here are some of the pain points that I'm seeing currently in various markets and have seen over the course of my career is we are getting more objections to fees as markets are softening and maybe sellers are a little bit more sensitive to what equity they have. We are seeing some agents that are undercutting fees to secure listings. And then I hear a lot of like, well, what makes you different? All of you guys sound the same. And I promise you after today, you will not sound like the other agents in your market. So
Yeah.
I will give you a specific structure to put value into your presentation, a few simple script changes that will elevate your confidence. And therefore, when you come across more confident, your clients feel that, and a listing flow that really is kind of painless and makes objections almost completely obsolete or irrelevant.
Yeah, let me comment on that as well. So, guys, I've been coaching for, I don't know, since 2014, literally hundreds and hundreds of teams. And part of the process, Beth, a lot of times is like, hey, let's review the listing presentation, see if we can make the presentation better. So, I've seen literally hundreds of these. I will have to tell you, they're all identical. You guys have the same presentation. I'll tell you what your presentation probably looks like. You start out by telling them you're number one or how good you are and all the accolades you've received. Then you're going to talk about your photos, maybe some video, maybe an open house. You're probably going to put them on 400 other websites, right? The aggregator sites on there, right? And the marketing pitch, I will tell you, is scarily similar across all of North America. So what Beth is talking about, if the seller decided to interview three agents, right? So agent A, agent B, and agent C came, and all of these presentations and the value they can provide the seller, in the seller's mind's eye, seems very similar. How do you think they choose the agent? It's called commoditization, if you want to know. they pick the one that's the least expensive. So we've got to separate ourselves. Beth is going to teach us through value that I should be paid a little bit more because these guys do this, which I do, but I also can do this, that, which they cannot. So I deserve a higher fee. So we don't get commoditized. You got to create a degree of separation, and Beth is going to teach you how to do that today. So good.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Mike. I actually had this conversation with somebody earlier. I'm East Coast time, so it's 3 o'clock. I've already had my lunch, and I was having lunch with a friend who we had a sales career together previously. And I said to her, Katie, you've turned into a loaf of bread. And she got wide-eyed and she said, what do you mean? I go, you're positioning yourself as a commodity. And you, my friend, are not a loaf of bread. You are a Louis Vuitton bag. Not everybody needs you, but everybody wants you, and you need to show them why. So you're exactly right. And after today, your presentation is not going to look like everybody else's. So getting into the presentation, the structure itself that I have utilized for a number of years is different from what Mike just said he sees in a majority of cases, because I start with discovery. And the reason I start with discovery is nobody cares about how good you are. What they all want to know is, what can you do for me? And when you start with discovery and truly take the time to understand what the prospective seller's goals are, you immediately have separated yourself from anybody else that they may have spoke to. And what I mean by that is, when I show up to their home for the appointment, they of course invite me in and they are quick to want to show me around the house. And I'm like, I am so happy to be here and I am really excited to see the home. However, before we tour the home, I'd love to sit down at the kitchen table and just help you understand exactly what's going to happen today, as well as ask you a few questions so I make sure that I understand what your goals are. And right there, they're like, wow, this is different. So when I say everything starts with discovery, I literally have pre-printed questions, because there's a lot of studies that show if you show up with pre-printed questions and actually use pen and paper to make notes, people believe that you're more organized and you're paying attention to what they're saying, which I am. So now I've positioned myself as more of a trusted advisor or a confidant versus a salesperson or a real estate agent.
Yeah, the discovery part, guys, it doesn't matter buyer or seller side. When you ask enough discovery questions, so the consumer feels understood, like what they're trying to accomplish and what their timelines or situation may be, and you as the agent truly feel like you understand them and they now feel that you understand what they're trying to accomplish, everything else becomes 100 times easier. When we don't do discovery and we just go into sell mode and close mode, and the client's like not really sure if you get them, much harder to get a higher commission and or a signature. I'll share with you. So I love Beth that you're going to be that discovery, understand their whole situation, so then you could deliver the information that they want to hear or need to hear to get the result, the outcome that they wanted. So
Yeah.
aces.
So here's my very simple 5-part listing appointment structure. I just shared that I start with discovery. From there, I go into our marketing strategy. And my verbiage is, I'm going to show you exactly what myself and my team do to successfully sell homes or successfully help our clients achieve their goals. Okay, so I'm tying it back to the client's goal. After I've gone through my marketing strategy, and I won't deep dive into that today, but at some point in time, I'm happy to do an entire listing presentation. But to Mike's point, I don't talk about me. I talk about the tools and the systems that we use that are going to help them. Next, I will then do what I call a positioning assessment, right? Most agents go, now we'll do a tour of the home. I don't need to tour homes. I've been doing this long enough. I can see your pictures online. I am doing a positioning assessment. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to go through the home and I'm going to look at it from a strategic standpoint to make sure that we are competitively positioned against any of the competition in the market. And what that means is, as we're going through the home, if I identify something that I think could be improved upon or should be modified to make us more saleable, I'm going to share that information with you. And they're like, oh, okay, great. And then the last thing I do is I come back to the table and we have a conversation around pricing. And finally, I close. And my close is really, really simple. When I get through everything and they're nodding and they're smiling, I simply say, do you have any hesitations about my ability to help you achieve the goal of whatever it is? be out of here in 30 days, get top dollar. But I'm ultimately tying everything back to what their goal is. And I only know that because I've started with discovery.
Perfect.
So from there, now I'm using my discovery to do what I call a value stack. So I have probably 15 to 20 slides in my presentation, and I know based off of the personality that I'm communicating with, as well as what they've told me their goals are, which ones I really need to highlight and which ones I don't. So there is a little bit of an antiquated mindset, or if you're a little bit unsure or lacking confidence, you have a tendency to talk more. As you increase your confidence in your sales skills, try that again, you will actually learn to talk less. So I don't have to oversell. I can really focus on the things that I know are going to be most relevant to this particular client. So it's not that you get paid for what you do, it's that you get paid for how you position what you do. And in this case, we're positioning ourselves to be the person that can deliver the goal.
Let me talk about that because that's something I had to learn, I guess, early on, Beth, is my clientele was very diverse. I had a whole thing of like IT people over at this company called Computer Associates that worked on so high analytics, right? Then the other one were business owners, which generally high drivers, right? And then we had a lot of people from hospitality. So my presentation guys, I never knew going in sometimes what the personality type would be of the consumer. And I said, what if they're a driver? What kind of presentation would they like to see in here? The analytic, the same thing. So what I did, guys, I created a presentation that'd be universal to all. But then when I present, Beth, I would just present knowing the personality type now that I met you. Like if it was a driver, it was just going over those high bullet points, going quickly through the slide. If there was an analytic, I would pause a lot longer on the data and the reports and all the numbers that they love to see there. If it was an expressive, I would use more visual aids and stuff to show them pictures and images because if you don't know, high expressives have an extremely hard time with numbers and they learn everything visually through colors and images. So I had a lot of those in there. And then I would just spend a little more or less time depending on the personality type. My presentation was already set, and that would be the presentation I knew they would want to receive. Because imagine the high expressive, and I'm talking about numbers the whole time, right? They're not going to want to probably work with me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you lose them. And it's not that they won't work with you because they don't trust you. They actually aren't confident in making the decision because they don't feel like they understand. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, whoops, wrong direction. So here's exactly how I stack it is now I'm really losing. Okay, here's how I stack things. Everyone's like, okay, it's great to say you articulate value, but what does that mean? So my process is feature, bridge, benefit, tie down. And here's exactly what it looks like. Mike, you talked about professional photography. I actually position that as a standard. I do a few things where I'm like, if you're speaking to an agent and they're not doing this as standard protocol or standard operating procedure, you might want to reevaluate. And I do throw in some things that are a little bit higher end because I know that mentally they're eliminating people. But for the sake of this demonstration, I will use professional photography. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, one of the things that we offer to help our clients achieve their goal is bringing in professional photographers. Why it matters. All I say is what this means for you is that before anybody steps through the home, they're going to have a very accurate representation of what your house looks like. Do you see how this is going to attract only the most serious buyers that are ultimately going to pay top dollar for your home? Okay. All I'm doing is following that same protocol for everything that I'm featuring that's important to them. So if they say they want top dollar, everything that I highlight in my presentation from a marketing strategy standpoint is going to tie back to, do you see how this will help us get the highest price, top dollar? And I'm just reinforcing that over and over. So to simplify one more time, the feature is simply the thing that you're talking about. Professional photography, drone photos, floor plans, whatever it is that you do. Your bridge is all you're going to do is say what this means for you. And it's a great pattern interrupt because if they start to get a little like, where are they going with this? And you lose them, as soon as you say what this means for you is, they're like, oh, we're talking about me. Great, I'm all ears. You tell them the benefit. and then you tie it back to what's most important to them. And what
Mm.
you'll find is you're getting these little agreements through your entire process where they're going, yes, I do see this. Yes, I do see this. And then it makes it really hard when you get to the close and you say, do you have any hesitations about my ability to help you achieve your goals? Because they've been doing this for 10 minutes, they're not going to do this.
Well, Beth, I don't know if you realize, but on your operation here, the tie down, if you guys don't know, is really if you're using a true tie down, a form of NLP. So
Mm,
what I had in my presentation, Beth, is very similar to what you just said. Is another part of NLP is embedded commands. So quite frequently, if Beth just keeps on reminding them, this is how we get top dollar, right? This is how we get top dollar. This is right. Their brain just to pick up on that over and over as, oh, this is how we're going to get top dollar. This is happening. And Beth already discovered in discovery mode, that was the thing that was most important to them. Could you imagine going through the presentation, and this is what we do to get you top dollar. This is you're fulfilling their goal of getting top dollar, and it's a no-brainer at the end. And they're saying, yes, yeah, yes, we want to get top dollar. Oh, I see how you get us top dollar, and you tie it down with that head nod and the yeses.
yeah.
Game over. Game over.
It is game over. And I will also say, don't always make an assumption that somebody's number one objective is to get to top dollar. There are a lot of people are like, I just want this to be the most convenient. I want this to be the most stress-free. But whatever it is they tell you, that is always your tie down.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm all about language. I think language drives perception. I say your words are either going to create trust or kill it. So I'm going to offer a few simple swaps that I think ultimately just help elevate the way that you present yourself and build trust with your clients. So, for example, I don't say, I list your home. I say, I position your property to win. I do not say commission. I say my professional fee. And I don't say marketing, I say a targeted exposure strategy. So these are just a few little nuances that if you start making some simple swaps, all of a sudden the way that you show up and you're perceived by the people sitting across the table from you is you are now their trusted advisor because you are differentiating yourself from everybody else. So I love my words that win. I do this often where I'm like just sharing few little nuances. So when I'm speaking to clients, I'm also, and maybe this is NLP, I don't know, Mike, you can tell me, but I'm also interjecting little things like everything I do is designed to help protect your equity if they've told me they really want top dollar. Or everything that we do, we don't really sell homes, we deliver outcomes. Or my goal is to make this your most profitable move, or my goal is to make this the most stress-free move of your life. So again, really tying into the emotional aspect because we know that people make decisions based off of emotion and then justify it with logic. So the
100.
more that I'm positioning myself as an advocate and a consultant, and I am here to help you, I am light years ahead of anybody else that they may be speaking to.
Yeah, I learned that, which I didn't know, but I thought if I was going to an analytic, like a very strong, which I had a lot of those, that it was all logic based. But I read and I learned, years later, even the staunchest analytic makes all their decisions based on emotion,
Mhm.
even though they don't have to express or display much. So yeah, you need to do these things, guys, with every personality type, because 100% of all decisions are based on emotion, not logic.
Yeah. But what your analytics like, your accountants and your engineers, is they love when they have a feeling and you're giving them the data to justify their feeling. Because otherwise, they will be up until 3 o'clock in the morning dissecting everything, looking for the reason to justify their feeling, and may ultimately make a different decision if they can't.
Yeah, going back to words that win trust. So if I have the analytic, like I'm trained now, Beth, the words data, reports, statistics, right? I will just be spitting these words out because that is their love language, right? That kind of terminology. Now, again, the expressive, I will never use those words on that appointment. So my word choices are very selective to the people sitting across from me, the ones that will feel good to them and resonate to get me the result I want.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, so I've committed to helping everybody make more money. Here is how I position my professional fee. And again, there's very little, almost no pushback when I start this conversation because I have gone through this process with my listing presentation and I have literally made everything about this particular person and their goal. So once I get to the conversation around compensation, I say, my fee is 4%. So here's my fee, right? And whether you love the NAR changes or not, this has actually been a gift for a lot of us. So here is my fee. It's over here. It's on the shelf. And we don't discuss it beyond me saying my fee is 4%. And my professional recommendation is that we offer the buyer's representative between 2 and 3%. Which would you prefer? Because now they get to make a decision. They feel like they're an active participant, which they are, but we're not discussing my fee. We're only discussing what we're offering the buyer's agent. So here's where things can get a little, we'll say sticky. I'll say that. I've had this conversation a few times recently where they go, oh, okay, well, like what should we offer? Like, what does that look like? What's our competition offering? And I say, guys, we really don't know. And I give a quick synopsis of the NAR suit. Really, we can't compare and contrast to what other listings are offering. This is a decision that you need to make. With that being said, in my experience, an average agent will accept whatever we offer them. So let's offer 2%. You're going to give me permission to share 2% as a buyer's representation fee to whomever asks. On the other hand, a strong agent will ask for what they believe their value is. So knowing that we're going to disclose 2% when asked, I also want you to consider that if a strong agent comes forward and they have the confidence to ask for 3%, we shouldn't lose a good offer over 1 percentage point because we're likely going to have a smoother transaction with a higher caliber agent. Okay, so I'm also giving them guidance if they ask, right? So I'm managing the expectation up front. Yes, we may say 2, or we may say 2.5, or anything in between. And it's still negotiable, is essentially what I'm saying.
I love it. And let me check. It's funny. I knew you were a perfect fit today, Beth, because I do exactly the same. So guys, I've been doing buyer broker contracts and bifurcating these commissions for my whole career, 20 something years on there. It just made more sense to me. So let's go to the seller side first. So whatever you're asking for, 3, 4, 5%, whatever the number is, I would show them visually all the things we talked about in the marketing that I do to get the above average results that I get my seller. Because a number you guys should track. I don't know if it's part of your presentation. I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to get there, but
Okay,
go ahead.
I want to say it. So on this part, so I had all these things like, well, Mike, could you do it for a little bit less? Can we do it for half a point less or a full point less than I was asking for? And I said, well, we could, I guess, technically, but what things you want me to take out of the marketing plan? And as we start to pull those things out, that's going to diminish the result, your final sales price on there. So it seems like an expensive move to try to save a little money and forego tens of thousands potentially. So I'm going to recommend we don't take anything out if you want the results. I've gotten a lot of my past clients because we know this plan works in its entirety. You can't start, taking parts of it out and expect to get the same results.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. And we are going to talk about exactly that, Mike. I love it.
Perfect.
Okay. So here's the next. Thank you. You queued me up.
Mhm.
Guys, you have to know your numbers. You have to be able to demonstrate a return on investment. Show them how your process leads to faster sales, higher net, more convenience, less stress, whatever it is. You're going to use your numbers to tie it back to their most important goal, regardless of what it is. So prior to Sisu, so I will give a shameless plug to Sisu. I love Sisu. I'm an avid Sisu user. I used to, at the end of every year, pull my report from the MLS, tally up my days on market, then look to see what the average was in my market. And then I would do the same with my list to sale price ratio. And I have held myself to a standard of always being at least 3% higher than the average in my market in terms of my ROI. And I'll get into this in a little bit more detail because just like talking about numbers this way, people start to glaze over. They immediately go, oh, numbers, math is hard. But I'm going to give you a very simple way to demonstrate this to your clients. The other part, and I think, Mike, you were spectacular to say, okay, if I'm going to discount, I'm going to need to pull some of this stuff back. I actually take it a step further and say, I have the ability to offer a reduced professional fee. However, in order to do that, I would have to remove some of the services that help me deliver my clients' results. My professional reputation is based on over delivering. And while I appreciate your standpoint, I'm not willing to jeopardize my professional reputation for a single transaction. I'm sure you understand. And they're like, wow. Because, guys, that is the reality. When you put a sign in somebody's front yard, that is your reputation hanging there. And I mean it. Like, I will not discount myself or strip anything back to be average when I've worked so hard to build a brand that is anything but. It would be a short-term sacrifice that would give no gain. So here's where we're going to pivot just a little bit. So again, I say don't ever tell them something that you can show them. So we're going to show them the money. Let me just swap this out. Bear with me just a moment. I'm going to stop sharing, then come back. So I do have a quick little worksheet that you guys are free to rip off and duplicate. I'm happy to share it with the team and get it out to all of you. It is branded right now. To me, but I'm going to show you a very simple tool that I use to make sure that my clients understand the value that I bring.
Well, Beth was looking for that. Let me give you two simple ways to earn more commission based on what Beth's teaching us today. So number one, what I learned is I'll do the presentation. I'll tell them what my fee is going to be, and then sometimes they would ask me, Beth, if I would be willing to do it for a little bit less.
Mhm.
And I simply would say, no, I can't do it any cheaper. And they're like, we just thought we would ask Mike. And they signed the paperwork.
Yeah.
Number two, which is another huge opportunity, guys, in real estate, for some reason, I see we think more in whole numbers. Like we're asking for this fee, and then they want to take us here. Let's just say, pick your number. You had four there, say, Beth, you're four. And then, oh, we only want to pay you 3%. So what I do with some of my luxury clients, we're like, I can't do 3%. How about 3.8%? Right. So I'm only coming down 2/10 of a point, Beth, not a whole point. Because some of your clients, the ones that really like to negotiate, feel like they need to get something. Like they're not going to sign unless they get something. So you give them 1/10 of a point or 2/10. You don't have to give them a whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I have been guilty in the past until you shared that with me previously, Mike. Like, why do we always think in whole numbers? You know, and it's interesting. And I've actually started to implement that even in negotiations, right? So like everyone's like, oh, we're countering back at X. And we'll counter back now at like an odd number, you know, like we'll throw a few couple random digits at the end and they're like, why? And I go, you know, my clients are very diligent and they've really taken the time to understand exactly what their maximum is, and this is it. And because it's such an obscure number, people are like, oh, okay, I guess that's really as far as they're going to go.
Yeah, unrounded numbers in negotiations get countered a lot less often because Beth is sharing the psychological impact to the other side is, well, I guess that's the max. I mean, I got this weird number on here. As soon as it's rounded, you're going to get a counter halfway in between where you were before.
Oh yeah,
Every
the
time.
meet in the middle, the kiss of death, meet in the middle.
Right.
Never negotiate with me and say we're going to meet in the middle. I'm going to eat you for lunch.
And she will.
All right. So guys, this I keep in my toolbox, aka a folder in my bag whenever I go on a listing presentation. And I don't have to bring it out often, but it is a tool. And you should always have every tool you need in your toolbox in the event that you need it, which goes back to what I was saying before. Don't oversell it. If they're on board, if you're getting the yes, take the yes and go with it. Things don't have to be that hard. So here's exactly what my document looks like. It's a single page. I have my stats along the top, which these are actually part of my listing presentation because when I get to the end, I tie it all back to what this means for you is. And I show them how I'm going to get them more money in less time. And that's really what a majority of people want, or some variation of that. So what I do is when I'm getting a lot of pushback on my fee, I say, I absolutely understand how important it is for you to maximize the equity out of this investment. Would it be okay if we took just a few minutes to break down what this is going to look like. And they're like, yeah, great, because really they simply want to understand. And people don't love numbers. So I take this document and we'll use a fairly easy number. We'll do a list price of $400,000. And we're going to make some assumptions that we're on the same page about price. If they've talked to other agents, yeah, you guys are all saying the same thing. Like they said around 400, we agree with that, etc. Great. Okay, so let's assume that we're both going to list the house for $400,000. Now, let's look at history and see what is the sale price going to be based off of what we know today. My average list to sale price is 107%. So then I take 400,000 and I literally take my phone out, I get my calculator, I go 400,000 times 107% is $428. And I'm literally writing this in real time. So 400,000 list price, I'm going to get a sale price of 428. On this side, 400,000, and they're going to get a sale price based off of average, because I'll say, well, the other agent that you spoke with, what is their list to sale price ratio? What are the chances it's even been discussed? Slim to none.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, so they didn't convey to you what their results are? That's okay. Is it safe to assume they're getting average then? Because as a salesperson, if you're above average, you love to talk about it. And they go, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, they're probably average. So I go, okay, so let's take 400,000 and we'll assume the other agent is average, meaning they're going to get 103%. So they're going to get a sale price of 412,000. Now I start filling in these blanks. You can see professional fee, and mine is pre-printed at 4% because we don't talk about my fee. And then I'll add in the 2 or 3% there. So for the sake of this demonstration, we'll say 6%. So then we do 428 minus 6%. That's 402, $320. And then on this side, maybe they were going to do it for less. Maybe they were going to do it for 3 and 3. So I'll go, okay, now we take 412, which was the sale price we calculated, minus 5%. That's 391. So over here, I was 403. Here, I'm 391. And all I do is I fill in those numbers. I turn the paper around. I put it in front of them and I say, which number is higher? And I wait for them to tell me that I am going to get them more money. And this is where awkward silences are your friends. Because there's no disputing this. When you actually put pen to paper and do a simple calculation in front of the client with their participation and then ask them to give you the answer, they're like, okay, Beth, I get it. Makes sense.
And then Beth, same exact way I present. I have one more little thing I like to add at the end.
Yeah.
To really get them excited. So Beth, what would you do with an extra $12,000 when you choose to list?
Oh, I love that.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
every time.
Get them spending the money. Love it.
And again, I use this embedded command when you list with us. So I'm going to say that in my presentation. When you list with us, this is going to happen. When you list with us, so that's that embedded command I told you about. I'm going to say that 5 or 10 times. So they're going to list with us by the time they're done.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, I don't fault anybody for asking or wanting to save some money. And I tell them that, like, I really appreciate how seriously you're taking this decision. And I want to make sure that you have all of the information that you need to make an educated, confident decision. So I am not on the defensive. I actually did not get a listing recently because the gentleman said to me, Beth, you were so prepared. You blew everybody else out of the water. I just don't think in this market I need all that stuff. And that was a lesson for me because the reason I didn't get that listing is because I didn't take the time to do the next step. And so fortunately, in the majority of situations, I take any opportunity where I don't get the outcome that I'm looking for to say, okay, this is a learning. What do I have to learn from this? So here's the next piece. I love that you added that in, by the way, Mike, the whole what would you do with that extra money? Get them forward thinking and aspirational and excited. Like the endorphins start going and they're loving you. Yeah. Okay. So when they come back and they're like talking about the fee and we talked about showing them, they're still like, oh, I'm just not certain. I'm a firm believer is that you need to eliminate their fear, which often has nothing to do with your fee. So, Mike, I'm still sensing some hesitation. What is it that has you concerned?
It seems like it's going to cost us a lot of money and we might have some cheaper options. So I'm afraid I might be making the wrong decision if we hire you.
Okay. Aside from the money and the professional fee, what other hesitations do you have about my ability to help you achieve your goal?
None. I mean, the presentation was great. I could see all the things you do to get those results that you get, but money's tight and we need the equity in this house to make our next purchase. And the less we get, the less we can buy, which could definitely affect our quality of life moving forward. That's my biggest concern, that we're going to get the most amount of equity out of this house. And obviously, logically, I'm thinking the lower fee I have to pay, the more I can keep.
Sure. And I completely understand that. Thank you for sharing with me. And as we've reviewed the professional fee assessment, it sounds like there's still an element of concern that what if I don't over deliver? What if I don't get the above average list to sale price ratio? Am I understanding you correctly?
Exactly.
Okay. That's fair. Past results do not always guarantee future outcomes. We've got every personal injury attorney out there telling us that. So, Mike, here's what I would propose. What if I write into our listing agreement that if I don't deliver the standard that I believe that I will, that I will adjust my commission to what the average agent is charging? So, in other words, if I don't deliver above average, you won't pay me above average. But wouldn't you like to at least see how much I can get the market to command for this house with all of the tools and resources available to us?
You just took all the risk out of it. All right, what
I
do
took all of the risk out of it,
I
all
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. Good.
And they go, wow, because now what's going to happen? I'm still going to do everything that I do that separates me, which is going to position them in the best possible scenario to get the outcome that they want. And if I don't get them above average, then they're going to pay me average. And I do write that right in my listing agreement. When I get to, if I really have that person that is just so hung up on it that they can't get past it, I'm writing right here. If I don't deliver at least 107% list to sale price ratio, my fee adjusts to 3%.
Done. If you could go back to the last slide, Beth, I want
Yeah.
to share one more thing because this was textbook what just happened here. So Beth writes here, most objections are rooted in uncertainty, right? In that case, stress, fear, and anxiety. But what I want to share with you is the definition of what a truly an objection is if you haven't heard this before. An objection is nothing more than an unanswered question. So what I was really telling Beth is why should I pay you this 4% when I have cheaper options is what that's really interpreted as. So Beth, all she has to do is explain to me maybe again, because she already did once, why that fee being a little bit more, take the risk out of it. So my question has now been answered. So objections are not scary, guys. That's a question they're saying is why should I pay you this 4%? Or how do you take the risk out of the equation for me if I do decide to sign this at the 4%? So you have to answer. Objections are just a question you need to answer. So with that
Yeah.
being said, going on a lot of appointments, I would get objections or I get questions, guys, at the end of my presentation. So every presentation, Beth, if I got an objection or an unanswered question or something at the end, I would reincorporate that every appointment into my presentation, knowing I'm probably going to hear that again. Guys, you want to see power? Go to an analytic who has a list of these 10 questions or 20 questions they've Googled for you. And when you get to the end of the presentation and you say, hey, is there anything else you need to know? Did I not cover something? What questions do you have? And they look at their list. No, you answered everything. That shows someone who really knows what they're doing and how to get a job done. Hmm.
Yeah. And to your point, Mike, when I asked you what your hesitate, first of all, I isolated the objection. And this is not an objection handling workshop, but I think it's important to point out that that is or objections are buying signs, right? Like I love to get an objection, but I also want to make sure that we're not going to end up down a rabbit hole. So I said, Mike, aside from the fee, do you have, or what other hesitations do you have about my ability to help you achieve this goal? And Mike said, it's nothing. It is literally just the numbers because I know if I don't get this number, I don't get this next thing. Right. And that's where most people are. Most people aren't necessarily fixated on getting a certain amount for their house because they just want a certain amount for their house. They want that certain amount because of what it's going to help them achieve. And they're forward focused. So by understanding that, I could then offer that peace of mind to Mike that I'm not going to be the reason that you don't get that house. I'm going to basically put my money where my mouth is that says, if I don't deliver, then you're not going to pay me anything more than you would have paid the other average agent. And now there's zero risk, and I have offered peace of mind. So people generally will not commit to a decision if there's still uncertainty or fear. So again, that simple closing language, I'm simply putting in that if I don't deliver the results that I am historically known to do based off of the strategies I employ, that I will adjust my commission. And I have the ability to do that right up until the closing table. I also love to throw in when they're like, oh, wow, that's great. I go, Mike, isn't it? This is no risk to you. But here's the other piece. If I over deliver, you're going to pay me 7%. And I'll throw out like a wild number and they're like, whoa, 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 I don't know about that. But every once in a while, I do have somebody that goes, you know what, Beth, if you get me more than X, I will pay you more. So it's a sliding scale. It's a win-win for everybody. All right, so why this works, as we just talked about, it keeps my compensation intact. It's giving me every tool I need in my toolbox. It's making me very confident, yet not pushy, and it removes all hesitation. It's the no risk guarantee, right? Just like Mike said. Okay, so we're winding down. I want to do a quick recap. So here's what we've covered today. You must lead with discovery. Discovery and starting the conversation at the kitchen table will immediately separate you from a majority of your competition, and you are now viewed as a trusted advisor rather than a salesperson. Follow a structure, have a listing flow with a visual presentation to help you build trust. And then make sure you're value stacking everything back to what's most important to them, because all they're hearing is, Beth is going to get this done for me. Beth is going to get this done for me. And when they're so confident that you're the person to do the job, they're not going to push back on your fee. And then a few confidence scripts and your risk-free close. So I'm going to challenge everybody on this call to employ these things and add at least a percentage point to your current listing fee, because now you know you have the tools, you have the confidence, you have the flow, you'll deliver the results, and you're willing to put your money where your mouth is, that if you don't, then they won't pay you the extra percentage. But I think it's worth asking and then building in the risk-free close just so that you get more accustomed to actually asking for what you're worth.
Mm. Beth, I want to make sure we leave a few minutes. We got a couple of really good questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. These are just a few extra like words of encouragement. They don't need you to be the cheapest. They need you to be the best investment. And your commanding your value starts with you knowing your worth and making sure you can communicate it. So one of the things when I teach brand new agents, I make them go slide by slide through our listing presentation and make sure they understand exactly what it is we're doing on a very simplistic level so that they can explain it. All right.
Fantastic. Great job, Beth. I mean, my presentation is so similar to yours. And guys, my conversion rate was over 90%. I'll
Yeah.
bring it to you a little bit about it's all of this stuff here that it separates us, that gets us not just the listing, but then my commission rate was about 2% higher than my marketplace. I'll share with you my whole career because of exactly what Beth taught you today. So I could just tell you this works after hundreds and hundreds of appointments on here. Let's jump into some questions. We have about 10 minutes left. So Brandy in the chat there, if you guys see, ask what CISU is. So CISU
Oh,
is a data intelligence dashboard that allows agents, teams, brokerages even to keep track of all their leading indicators. If you don't know what that means, these are in real estate conversations, appointment set, appointment met, and also how they correlate to how many contracts in closing, because they all have an exact ratio. It's maybe another call, Beth, we could do if you like. And we could
yeah.
teach them, like, if you have this many conversations, how many appointments should be set, and all the ones that are set, how many should we meet? And it keeps track of, like Beth had mentioned, it tells you exactly to the hundredth of a percentage point what your commission average is, right? Because then you can see where you are and getting that up a couple tenths because the software does all the work for you. And it pulls all this data from your CRM. So there's no double entry, which is a lot. And now they've included stuff like transaction management, lead, what do they call that? Where you have leads that are agents have, but they're not working. So the system can take the lead away from them and reassign it so you don't lose the value of that. So it does about 100 things. My recommendation is if you go to their website, you can set up a free demo. Kind of, they'll give you all the bells and whistles and features and benefits. And I will share with you almost every client I've worked with in my career has that product. And as a coach, if you're working with a coach, I'm able to see in real time all of their numbers. So in the coaching call, I'm like, hey, Beth, I noticed this anomaly or this number, or average sale price is going down, or our commission numbers are off. So yeah.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I could pull up my screen share. We've been doing some tweaks on our end, meaning I'm always looking for ways to improve our efficiency, and it looks like my admin's in there. Honestly, it has been the tool that has become the hub of my business. And Brandy, what happens is over time, as all your transactions and all your activities start to flow through it, you'll see your year over year results, and it'll start to get really granular just on a like your front screen, your dashboard. Like, this is your average days on market, this is your average list to sale price ratio. It'll break it out buyer versus seller. So if you're in the buyer market, and my market's still been pretty competitive with a lot of multiple offer situations, so I'm getting top dollar for my sellers, but my list to sale price ratio was much lower for my buyers. So I was able to share with buyers that would come to me and say, hey, I can demonstrate that I've been able to negotiate better deals for my buyer clients and put more, basically reserve that money for you. So, I mean, we could do a whole webinar on Sisu, but I agree with Mike. I think it's worth, jumping on their website and seeing a demo, because it is an amazing tool.
Yeah.
So I think it was Brandy, with all of the price reductions going on these days, are you still able to charge 7%? Yes, because I don't really do a lot of price reductions, and that's another training for another day. But my pricing strategy, I really position for where the market is going, not where it is today. And that is part of my conversation. I manage the expectations that I would rather price us ahead of the market instead of chase the market down, which is ultimately going to get a quicker sale, higher list to sale price ratio, et cetera.
Yeah. Brandy, I'll share with you from my perspective, since bifurcation of commissions, a large majority of my clients now have a much higher commission average than before when we're using that one number, because they're doing a system very similar to what Beth taught you, where we break out the sell side and why we charge and why we get this fee, and then the buy side separate conversation on why we should offer this amount. So yeah, these in my world, we're retaining more commission, not less, since bifurcation on there. Someone asked if this is going to be recorded and sent
Yeah,
out. I think they
looks
all
like
are.
it
So
is. Yeah. And then Annalise, I think I answered your question as we continued on when Mike was talking about, if we have to lower commission and take things away, then I'm just going to go with another agent. That was one of those things that bit me in the butt. So I said, I'm not offering that anymore because I really want to keep all these tools in my toolbox and I want to preserve my professional reputation. So that's where I started to change the dialogue around like, I'm really unwilling to do that. This is the reason why. However, if I don't deliver at this level, you won't pay me at this level. So that's how I've worked around that.
Yeah. There's
Uh,
two things there, Beth. So if you're in that situation
mhm.
where they still want to work with the other agent who's a little bit cheaper, this means one of two things only. One, you didn't present enough value that they believe they should pay you a little bit more. Or number two, this is true. I study a lot of buyer behaviors, Beth. There is a segment of the population, roughly about 10, 15%. Nordstrom's could have a 99% off sale today. They're still going to Walmart. They always want what they believe to be the cheapest option because they believe that's the best for them. You're not going to change their mind. So you will get on few appointments. You can sell them the world, tell them everything, but they just look for the lowest number. What you say, they're not even listening to. I just want the lowest number. You're going to walk away from a couple of those probably.
Yeah, they want the loaf of bread, not the Louis Vuitton bag. So there is value in walking away from those because it's also usually the people that want you to continually discount that are going to ask you to jump through hoops and make you want to pull your hair out. So I would say don't invest your time or energy into those particular clients. Let them go to somebody else and refocus your efforts where your value is appreciated. Let's see. Will says, how are you helping your agents leverage the value of you and your team at the presentation when you're not present? So, Will, a couple of things. Everything that I present, I teach my team to present. And that goes back to the same reason that I won't discount and strip things away is because it is my brand and my reputation. And everybody on my team understands that they are an extension of the same brand and reputation. So we do a lot of practicing. If I have a newer agent, I don't give them the space to go on an appointment by themselves until they can successfully present to me. Everybody on my team gets to use my stats, right? And even if it's not me sitting in front of the client, everybody on my team has access to me and my expertise, which means anybody that they have a conversation with also has access to me and my expertise. So we're really not a divided team. Anything that's mine is theirs, and they always have access to me.
Yeah, Will, for newer agents, you got to teach them that, again, words are so important. They need to, in the beginning especially, learn the word we versus I.
Mhm.
We get our clients to, so this is how we achieve, above average results and stuff. Versus I, and that's I've done the same, Beth, as you, right? It's they use
Yeah.
my numbers, my stats, because we work together as a team, and that's why we are a team.
Yeah. And even when I first started the conversation, I said, I'm going to show you exactly what myself and my team do to help deliver our clients' goals. That's intentional because I do have a transaction coordinator. I do have other people that will hold open houses. And so I'm managing the expectation out of the gate that you're getting me and other people, and that's actually a benefit to them.
Perfect on there. Any more questions? We have another minute or two. If anyone has any, ask. You can ask either of us pretty much anything
Welcome.
on there. So yes, thank you much. First, I want to thank Beth. This is exactly what Spring and I had hoped for these calls, right? Is you get here, spend a little time together, and you could go back to your office today and find a way to make your business, your in this case presentation, commission averages a little bit better. So stay with us. These are going to get better. And as
Yeah.
I coach all these teams and agents around the country, and I learn, oh, I'll give you actually something you may want to focus on. The fallout rate of deals is climbing quickly around the country. If you don't know, depending where you are in the country, this number right now is between 10 and 25%. I coached the number one team in the whole state of Delaware. And last month, month before last, actually, 25% of every deal that went into contract did not close. So maybe a class on that, Beth, or something in the future we can offer
Yeah.
them to minimize that number because I see that one climbing pretty quickly.
Thank
Very
you guys
good,
for your
guys. So,
attention and go command more money.
that's it. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. And Beth, thank you again for all the
Yeah,
awesome
thank
wisdom.
you.
And
Love it.
we'll talk soon. So
Okay. Bye.
everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.